Let's get at her. It is another episode of the Manely Broncos Podcast. The last time we did this show, and I was doing it from my parents' house, we had mic problems, and we started late. But not tonight. Not tonight. We got the good mic, and we are starting on time. The vibes are immaculate. We're getting ready for a 4-day weekend, and we are kind of scrapping a little bit at the barrel, trying to find some topics. But I think we found a juicy one, or juicy ones, if you will, because this could be kind of an amalgamation of a lot of different topics that we're going to talk about. Before anything, make sure you hit that subscribe button over there on the MHRT Network page and follow us. It is a two-man show, I believe, here tonight. We'll see if we get a wild Brandon appearance, because that's the thing, when you give people some privileges to access, the show at any point in time, they could hop in at any point. So hopefully we don't get a wild, Brandon situation where he just hops in. I know I've done that before with certain shows, so I'm speaking from personal experience. But make sure you follow us. Follow Jordan at Jordan T. Lopez. Follow Brandon at Brandon Miller PO. You can follow myself at Cameron Parker PO. And you can also follow the show handle at Manely Broncos. Before we dive into any of that, how we doing, Jordan? You can recharge and stuff for your long weekend?
Yes, I am. I do have a long weekend ahead of me. I got another team camp with the new high school that I'm at for basketball. So got a long weekend coming up. And then I think, every July weekend, I'm going to be out of town. So I got a hectic basketball schedule ahead of me.
Do you at least have some downtime?
Like weekdays, and I'm talking about probably Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but that's about it.
It's a lot of fun. Obviously, for anybody that does not know, Jordan is a basketball coach, as you just now recently found out. We had a great breakdown, obviously, with Caleb Lawner. As we kind of gear up, some of the news and notes, when talking about the Denver Broncos, the training camp dates were finally announced. I should say the start of training camp was officially announced, where they will be kicking off on, I want to say it's July 16th. And, don't quote me on this, Jordan, but I believe this is like the latest that I can recall, the earliest that I can recall Broncos training camp beginning. Because I feel like, when you look at like the last 3 or 4 or 4 to 5, if you will, training camps, it's always kind of started like right at the tail end of July, at least like one more week in the sense, like, right, because it was they're starting at July 16th, so like right around like July 23rd or 24th, like that's when things would kind of kick off a little bit.
Yeah, at least it feels like it's earlier, right? So I guess that's the good part of it. We're about to hit a real dead period now once the NBA Finals is gone. So we need football as soon as possible, whether that's just clips of training camp or anything. So, but we'll just have to fight off till then. But, I'm starving for football just because this year has so many promises and aspirations, I guess you can say, for Denver, that we haven't had these expectations in a while. And it seems like everyone we talk to or we read from or hear from, it's like the Broncos are a double-digit win team again, which, again, it's great to hear.
It's great to hear, and as Landon said, kind of going through a bit of some Bo Nix withdrawals. Yeah. Landon, there is a remedy for that, and it's obviously not just listening to the Manely Broncos podcast, but it's also searching on YouTube for 40-minute highlights for the Broncos 2023 to 2024 season. So right? No, 2024 to 2025.
Don't want to search up the 2023 one.
Yeah, probably don't want to do that.
No.
Maybe certain games, like the Buffalo Bills game.
Yeah, just not the season.
Just not the season. So we have a fun conversation that we're going to have here tonight. It's a lot of different topics. The main course that we're going to talk about is making a playoff run. And what that kind of entails is you take wins and losses out of it. Like, that's the easiest answer. Like, making the playoffs is determined by your wins and losses. But also, because it's a team aspect of this, what must they do to make a playoff run or to go deep into the playoffs? Frankly, even make the playoffs or even go deep into the playoffs. Let's just start there first with the main course there, Jordan. I feel like I think my original question was, what is one thing? You can't really necessarily label it to just one thing. Obviously, there's other different factors that can easily go into this. But I think numero one, at least for me, and given the signing of J.K. Dobbins, it seems very evident they have to run the football in order for them to go and make a deep playoff run.
Yes, Bo Nix cannot be the focal point of the running game again. And there's been plenty of games where he came out as our rushing leader out of the game, which is all fine and dandy, but a serious contending football team cannot have their quarterback being their leading rusher every night they play. And again, I think the signing of J.K. Dobbins really helps the running back room. I think it really helps R.J. Harvey, even though a lot of fantasy football people think otherwise. I just think they're butthurt because they get the R.J. Harvey workload that they were expecting. But again, I think this run game is going to be a huge aspect of the Broncos going far. And I am expecting one of the best rushing seasons from the Broncos this upcoming year, just because we saw flashes last year. It's just we didn't have the right personnel. And I do believe now, with the whole running back room being revamped and maybe some new stuff being implemented within, whether it's schemes or anything related like that, I think we're going to see I'll say a bold prediction right now. I think Broncos will be a top 10 rushing team in the NFL.
It's interesting because, obviously we do not, as much as we liked, the fact that, literally it was like Bo Nix had the one ring to rule them all, and he was carrying the Denver Broncos all the way to Mordor, if you will, by breaking his back in the process. We, as much as we enjoyed the fact that he ended up being the focal point of the Denver Broncos offense, and for all intents and purposes being the Broncos MVP, there is the fine line, right? There is a fine line of, we want to be a running football team, but knowing when and use your quarterback. And I think that, and so often I think that the Broncos' secret weapon, as much as, obviously, Bo Nix dealt with his back injury, his legs are a secret weapon. And so I think that for Sean and Lombardi and the offensive staff, it's going to be interesting now that they've are entering year two. How do they find the fine line of using his legs and maybe using some creative ways of how to get him and some others the ball? I mean, just right off the cuff, right? Like it's easy to think of some different opportunities, but I would not be surprised if you see some quarterback designed runs. A little bit more, obviously the amount of workload, you certainly don't want it to be so much because you're going to be relying on JK and, possibly three others, right? In that room. But I would love to see them be a little bit more creative in how they want to use Bo. And, obviously maybe it's just, coming from the college game, Jordan, but I would love to see maybe a little bit of some triple option, here be sprinkled, with the Broncos and, and how they possibly want to use both their running, their backs and Bo. But I think just as far as the running game, I think we sometimes forget, right, about the running game in the sense like we talk about JK, we talk about Harvey, we talk about all these other guys in the room. Well, Bo can certainly use his legs too, and that can be a secret weapon.
Yeah, and I know it's going to sound like I'm contradicting myself here, but I think Bo Nix, at least this year, like this upcoming year, his legs are going to be more of a weapon. I know I just said that. I don't want him being our leading rusher every night, but I still do believe that he can be a big threat in the running game, and I would like to see designed runs. I thought the one they did last season against the Saints, where we were on the 50-yard line, and then he pulled Bo Nix like on a QB power type play.
Saints,
and,
yeah.
And it went for like 30 yards or 40 yards maybe. I thought that was perfect. I think we can do more of that. Again, I think he won't have necessarily the pressure now to carry that running attack, which I was trying to say earlier. But
yeah,
again, I think it opens up him more with those rushing lanes now with JK and RJ Harvey and improve the run game.
And there is one facet of the Denver Broncos, and obviously they don't utilize the tush push, but there's I think a certain area where maybe Bo, and this is maybe goes to a bit of how cerebral he is as a player, but there is a certain area that I think he could be money when it comes to third and short, fourth and short, or third and goal, fourth and goal, and that is that QB sneak. And obviously Tom Brady was Mr. Perfection when it came to the QB sneak, and Drew Brees, right, with Sean Payton, made it a huge thing to obviously do the leap, if you will, over the goal line. So knowing when to leap and everything, I think is going to be that other factor of being kind of that secret weapon, if you will, in the red zone. Moving forward, Jordan, what do you feel, or who do you feel is like another part of this, making a playoff run? Like, what is another factor of them making a playoff run or making the playoffs in general?
I do believe Courtland Sutton needs to have another 1,000-yard receiving season in order for the Broncos to make the playoffs. We need a back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving year from our wide receiver, and especially our wide receiver one. And if that does not happen, I don't think this team – it's tough to say, but I'd be very shocked if the Broncos make the playoffs and we don't have a 1,000-yard receiver, and especially if it's not Sutton.
Having that conversation of playoff run and everything, it kind of begs the question to a certain degree, and maybe it kind of took it down a different path now that I'm kind of thinking about it. But what qualifies as a successful season for the Broncos now, right? So like they hit the playoffs, they made the playoffs. I would venture to guess, objectively, a successful season would mean getting to the playoffs again. And when you look at it from the Broncos standpoint too, it's about also being probably at this point a little bit Super Bowl ambitious, a little bit earlier now, right? And the players are the players are certainly going to be bringing that up, but obviously there's probably some realistic expectations, in the building and, for what they want. But I have to think, Jordan, that winning a playoff game and having a home playoff game is probably one of those goals. But so for you, what would be a kind of a successful season? I feel like it's almost still, because this is such a young team, that a successful season still maybe at this point is still making the playoffs.
Yes, I agree with that. I think a successful season is still making the playoffs, but I would like to see that next step being taken and maybe taking one, right? Maybe taking a playoff game from somebody. And listen, I was very optimistic last year in us sweeping the Chiefs and going 2-0 in the regular season. I feel even more optimistic this year. I know whoever runs that sleeper Broncos account, I know they tweeted about it today, but I don't know who that guy is. But they even tweeted about it, how they've been close to the Chiefs. And I think truly this year if there's any year the Broncos can sweep the Chiefs, and
It's
really,
getting closer every single year.
yeah, if it's any year, I think it's this year coming up. I mean, they made the improvements on and off the field, and if there's any year to have a home playoff game as well, I think it's this year.
What's up, Clayton? Thanks for always hopping in. He is a Manely Broncos super fan. I should say MHRT Network super fan. And make sure, yes, you smash that like button and share. Have your friends tell their friends all about the Manely Broncos podcast. Yeah, you know, it's just kind of like one of those things, right? Like, you know, when you think about the Broncos and you think of how far they've come, you also kind of have to treat it because, like, that's the part of it too. Is like, say they do go 12-5, right? Say they have a better record, they make the playoffs and they lose. Does that still kind of qualify as a successful season at that point, or you know? So like that's the part of it too, right? Like so, and because like there's also still somewhat of that grace period, right? Because it's such a young team.
Yep.
So it's like it's kind of like that interesting question that you kind of have to ask if it got to that point in year two. Moving on with some of those factors of getting on and making the playoffs or I should say making a deep playoff run. It's going to sound like a broken record. But to carry on a little bit, what Jordan was saying. What's up, Paul? We always love having you. But to kind of talk about again, kind of a broken record here, but like I know you mentioned about Courtland Sutton, but you'd have to at least see some more growth from the other players of that wide receiver room, right? Like mainly Troy Franklin, right? And I think that I believe it was Steven who asked in the chat, at one point to kind of take what Sean Payton's been saying seriously, about Troy. And it's a good question because, and we talk so often about, Troy Franklin's taking that leap, but we really don't need to look no further than another player that has been in that room. And granted, he maybe at this point has been kind of used as a wide receiver running back, and that'd be Marvin Mims. But like everybody wanted to write Marvin Mims off after that rookie year.
Yep.
And then in 2023 or that in 2023 and then 2024 and then 2025, they found that niche. Like they found that role that they've been wanting, to go for with Marvin. And, we'll see. We'll see if Franklin can become that guy or at least surge a little bit because I again, broken record. We sound like, a broken record here, but if he does take that leap, you're having a bit of a conversation about not just a player that has a foundation in that wide receiver room, but a player that has a foundation for a boundary wide receiver and possibly wide receiver 2 at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've for sure been a broken record for months about Troy Franklin and how he has to take the next step. And yes, is it unfair that we're already asking him to make this type of a leap in year 2? Some would say maybe a bit unfair, but it's just the flashes that we see and the ceiling that we know he has. It's special, and the Broncos need it for this upcoming year, especially with Bo Nix. I mean, after having that special of a rookie season that Bo Nix had, that your window is starting to open, and now you need to capitalize, and especially with the dead cap money coming off the books very, very soon. The Broncos are going to have a really good window now, and that window is only going to start opening up more once you get another emerging young guy like a Troy Franklin stepping up and improving. So, yes, he's going to be heavily relied on to take that next step.
But it makes you question, like in the sense of like with Sean, it's like we should be taking his word for it. You know what I mean? Like we should be taking his word for it in the sense of, yeah, maybe gospel. And yeah, they drafted Pat Bryant, but it's pretty evident that he loves that room. Like he loves that wide receiver room, and he's spoken about it numerous times. So in regards to making a deep playoff run, the Broncos defense is the strength of the team. Yep. Yeah, I think we can all agree. We can all agree that the Broncos defense is the strength of the team. But what do they need to do in order for them to also help this team, make a deep playoff run? When you look at it from the defensive side, what are they going to need to do?
So the Broncos defense last year, we can safely say was top 5, top 3 with a safe assumption, right? I think this defense with the personnel they have and coming off the year that they're coming off of with now a new confidence and swagger that they have, adding a Greenlaw, adding a Hufanga, adding Jahdae Barron, you have to be a top 3, and you might even have to be the best defense in the league. And they very much have the capabilities of doing that. You by far have to dominate the AFC West games that we play. You have to dominate those games defensively.
Yeah.
I think that's like that has to be priority number 1. But I'm just talking in a totality. From the whole league, the Broncos defense has to be number 1. Whenever you search up defensive ranks, when the season's around and we're week 8, you want to see, where's Denver's D ranked? It better say number 1. And if it does, that means we're in really good shape.
Obviously, we should always strive to be number 1 in everything we do. But I mean, if the Denver Broncos are at least top 10 in every single category, they're going to have a really good season. I think that specifically, when we talk about the running game that the Broncos have to have, right? And that is on the offensive side of the ball. Well, on the defensive side of the ball, they are going to have to show a little bit more when it comes to the playoff, time, that they can be able to be stout on the run. And that is what always has made like the Philadelphia Eagles such a huge defensive Super Bowl juggernaut, right? Is that they can rotate guys in and out and bodies. And, the Broncos certainly have a top tier defense. But obviously, if there's one thing that we know is the Buffalo Bills playoff game kind of showed a little bit that there were a little bit of some cracks, within that run defense. And that isn't, solely carried by Zach Allen, and some others that, they're great pieces, but, you're going to need a little bit more body, some beef down there, on that line. So I think that, it's important for guys like Savion Jones, and I think that when you look at it from like they're like Savion Jones, John Franklin Myers, for whether they extend him or not, like just having so many capable bodies that is on that defensive line will serve you so much good, not just for that playoff run, but conditioning. Like the conditioning is going to be so well perfect for a lot of those players on the defensive line that they can rotate anybody at any moment.
I mean, and we've talked about it before, even with like the running back room, like how J.K. Dobbins is going to keep R.J. Harvey fresh, Jaleel McLaughlin fresh. I think we can say the same with the defensive line room. The more we can rotate those guys in and out, the better they're going to be, just because they're going to be more fresh out on the field. They're going to have more energy, and they're going to get to the quarterback even quicker. I mean, last year we saw the type of pace that they were playing with when rushing the passer. I can only imagine if we start rotating guys a little bit more often, especially like if Jonah Ellis takes the next step, which he had some flashes last year that not a lot of people are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And like if he takes another step and we find something in Q Robinson and then obviously Savion Jones and some other guys, I mean, if we can start getting a little bit of a rotation there, that it's going to make the defense even more impossible to break down and score on.
Kind of brings us to, probably one of the more obvious aside from the wins and losses, because as we said, wins and losses is very easy. That's the coup de grace, if you will, of making a playoff run is wins and losses. But when we talk about conditioning, the Broncos offseason, if everything hits, it's going to parallel the 2014 offseason, and that's if it hits. So when we talk about conditioning, health is like numero uno once again. Yep. For this team to take that deep stretch into the playoffs, because if the Denver Broncos are able to get a healthy Talanoa Hufanga, if they are able to get a healthy Dre Greenlaw, if they are able to get that healthy Evan Ingram, if they are able to get a healthy Jade Barron, if they are able to get, all these pieces that they've added,
Dobbins,
if they get a healthy J.K. Dobbins, wouldn't that be something? J.K. has not had necessarily a full season's worth, right, of games, but he comes to Denver. Not only are we building Bo Lowry a statue, but we're probably building the George Payton and everybody for concocting certainly one of the more remarkable off seasons that they've had in a long time. But health is once again a priority, and obviously health is certainly one in every season, Jordan. But it feels like it's more prevalent and more prominent to have this kind of conversation with the offseason that the Broncos have had.
And I would like to piggyback off that assessment, because J.K. Dobbins right now is 26 years old. Let's say he has his first full healthy season under Bo Lowry, and that is very much in play, because we have seen since he has stepped foot in Denver, we have had some of our most healthy seasons we've had in quite a while. So let's just say, and I know Dobbins signed on a 1-year deal and stuff like that, but if Dobbins does play a full healthy year, and obviously he does well under Sean Payton, and he likes the vibe around the locker room, which has been highly praised by everybody and the people and in the organization and all that, that's going to entice him to come back to Denver. And I know I might be getting ahead of myself here, but that plays a bigger factor that not a lot of people think about. Like, again, like with a Hufanga or a Greenlaw, two guys are not known for being injury riddled, but they do have an injury history with them. If they have a healthy year in Denver with Bo Lowry and just the training staff and the conditioning staff and all of them, like, that's going to start enticing some of their friends and some of the guys they know out in the league. Be like, hey, I was shut out of luck at other teams. I come to Denver, had a full healthy season. Just look at J.K. Dobbins, right? So again, that's a interesting piece that we can dive deeper into, but it's for sure in play for these guys.
As we said, the highest ceiling Dobbins and Harvey can ever go to, is one that's over down there in Detroit. And if it gets to that point, look, Dobbins will be an extension candidate, and I still don't think he's going to be worth all that much either, even for an extension, because the people that are like worth the kind of money that are like the dominant running backs of the world are Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. Dobbins obviously is not going to be getting that kind of money, but I mean it goes to show you that, like, when you go into a really good situation and you have proven the worth, you're gonna, you will be rewarded. And I think that for the Broncos, just in general, like, when you have just that success, like a lot what you were saying is just that word will travel fast, so much so that it isn't just about like the friends of Dobbins, friends of Hufanga, friends of Greenlaw, like it's players around the league that are just going to be noticing the fact that, oh, wow, these players went here. They had injury-riddled careers. They come to Denver. I don't know what exactly is in the water, like they got Mr. Miyagi over there in the corner, and they're or Mario Batanzi's out there in the corner, Mr. Body Healer's just over here, and he's doing wonders along with the Denver Broncos, and he's and doing wonders. So I mean, like it begs the question. It would beg the question. I think that it would very much be in play, for the Broncos. Do you have another one as far as like possibly how the Broncos can make the playoffs, or a deep playoff run, if you will?
I think I think everything starts within the trenches, and the offensive line play needs to either. I thought they played really well last year. I know there is some up and downs and some inconsistency throughout what people thought about them. But I think if the offensive line produces another, let's say, top 10 metric season within like pass block, win rate, and stuff like that, like things we see, they're always at the top of those metrics. I think if they have another one of those years, that again puts the Broncos and the offense in a good position where they can make another playoff run, and this time hopefully a bit of a deeper playoff run.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? It does kind of beg the question a little bit, because the Broncos did have like a top 7 offensive line unit, right? So let's just, because everybody was for the most part really good, on that offensive line,
and healthy.
And there is. And I mean, I was actually going to take this to Luke Wattenberg, but my mind was going to, if there is one player who, frankly, isn't getting enough love, and he probably should, it's Mike McGlinchey.
There we go. Yep.
I think people in Broncos country and on, the fandom really need to kind of appreciate what Mike McGlinchey gave the Broncos in 2024. Because there was a moment, I mean, we probably fell victim to it a little bit, when he was injured, where Alex Pavlovsky, slid right in, did an unbelievable job, arguably one of the best jobs you could have asked for right tackle, to just slide in and make an easy transition there, right?
Yep.
But no, Paul Chesky, he comes out because McGlinchey's healthy, and they don't even miss a beat. And frankly, they get a lot better. The running game gets a lot better. The pass protecting gets better. Frankly, it was almost like even from the beginning of the year to even the end of the year, McGlinchey was just such a really consistent blocker on both in the pass blocking area and the run blocking area, where you look up his stats, he did not allow hardly any sacks on the year, for the 2024-2025 season. So you want to talk about an offensive lineman that frankly goes completely unnoticed, that that no one really talks about. It's McGlinchey.
Yeah, like people had this like preconceived notion already about him, like heading into this. Like even when we first got him, like he already had this label on him of like only a good run blocker, and then very consistent as a pass blocker, and just overpay. That's all I heard when we signed him. Overpay. And then all the 49er fans saying that thank God you took him from us, like this and that. Right. And then it's just hard for an offensive lineman, because if you give up one sack out of 70 snaps, everybody is going to talk about that one play. And Mike McGlinchey has been well for the Broncos in at that right tackle. And again, that label was a little bit unjust for him and unfair heading into this to his term with the Broncos. But I think he's been great for Denver. I think Sean Payton likes him. I think he likes his leadership, and I think he's been big in that locker room. And I think he's even big for someone like an Alex Pavlovsky. Like, I don't think Alex Pavlovsky plays the way he plays if Mike McGlinchey is not in that locker room and probably helping him every single day on the practice field. That mentorship means a lot more than what people think.
It will have been his second lowest of his career in terms of sacks given up. And it was a bit scattered, if you will. So it wasn't like he had like a slew of games where he would give up those 3 sacks and then it would be fine. No, he would give up a sack on this game and give a sack on that game and give a sack on that game, and for the most part, but everything you could have asked for in terms of for right tackle, Mike McGlinchey's been not a disappointment. I would just say that he has not been a disappointment, and also good luck, in terms of if you piss off, anything about Bo Nix, Mike McGlinchey might actually be the first person to greet you, and not in a good way.
Yes.
So he is between he and Bowles, he is becoming the epitome of those blockers, those the blindside blocker, and of course the right tackle blocker, if you will, the bodyguards, if you will, for Bo Nix. So it's literally everything you could have asked for. And hey, I know the game. I know the game didn't exactly end the way that it needed to. But gosh dang it, that picture of McGlinchey hugging Bo Nix, on that drive where he hits Courtland Sutton,
yep,
and he just gives him this big old bear hug, like that just felt like the epitome of the 2024-2025 season right there. All right, moving forward a little bit, and there's probably some other ones. And if you guys, by the way, have any ones that have not been mentioned, or you guys are a little bit late to the chat, feel free to chime in the chat, like what you feel, the Broncos are going to need to make a playoff run or make the playoffs. Obviously we touched, just for examples, we just recently touched about, the offensive line. We touched about, the running game. We talked about Bo Nix's, running game. So like, just chime in the comments what you guys feel in terms of like, how they can make a deep or make a playoff run, make a deep playoff run. And we'll get your comments on the stream. One of the other questions, of course, that we wanted to ask is, for as much as there's talk, about possibly like how the Broncos roster is a bit low on certain areas, you talk to some people, they're still a very deep football team. And when you are a very deep football team, you're going to have some tough decisions. But that said, Jordan, as we kind of enter into this training camp phase, so often we have this conversation of surprise cut candidates. And that is a very famous conversation that isn't just, with, people that do Bronco podcasts or anything like that. Like that is a famous conversation piece for anybody that does, any sort of podcast content, that covers teams and stuff like that. But that said, do the Broncos really have a player, when you look at it on the roster and they cut him tomorrow, where you're just telling yourself, that's a surprise candidate?
Would you say in terms of name value or just a surprise cut because he's been a long tenured Bronco, or does it matter? Because I may have one in mind, but he just doesn't have the name value.
Why don't you say the name?
I can see, and I don't think it's going to happen, but I can see Adam Trautman being a surprise cut candidate.
A surprise cut candidate, and then add it to Sean Payton's staff?
I mean, that would be very Sean Payton-like. But listen, I know we just got Evan Ingram, and there's still a lot of questions with the tight end room, but I do believe Sean Payton likes Lucas Kroll. I think he likes Nate
Best player on the team.
Yeah, the best player on the team in the franchise. And then if Caleb Lohner continues to develop he wants him to develop, I mean, I'm assuming the Broncos also save money with Adam Trautman if they do cut him. I mean, I just, if there's anybody on this roster as of right now currently constructed, maybe that's the one. But it's different this year because in years past, even last year, like there were names going into training camp that, hey, we have to watch out for these names because they are cut candidates. This year, I wouldn't say there's that much or even any at all. It's really hard to tell. So it is a good question to ask.
Well, because it's interesting because it's like I don't think Trautman will be cut.
Neither.
But like when you kind of like go down to what we would feel like, it feels oxymoronic. But like to say like who would be the easiest surprise candidate, because it's like if they're a surprise candidate, it was not an easy decision at all. But like obviously like the ones that come to mind would be like Alex Singleton, right? Like and but even then, like when you kind of talk yourself through it and you look at the stuff of like, well, okay, the reason why Singleton was cut was because, okay, Sanders probably showed out way better than they ever could have anticipated. And Bo Lowry worked his wonders, or Karen Reed or Lavelle Bailey or any of the other players that developed and were really nice in terms of that room, just to have just played so much better, that the upside of that room is greater with them on the roster than Alex Singleton. I don't know. Like Singleton's not necessarily a surprise candidate at that point. Jaleel McLaughlin, we talk a little bit about him, right? Like would Jaleel McLaughlin, Audric Estime be a surprise cut? I don't think so.
If I were to name three, and these are the only three names I can really think of, it'd be Adam Trautman. I can see the notion of Alex Singleton, even though that would be a tough one. So Trautman, Singleton, and then the third one I'd put up would be Estime.
But even then, like because you said it yourself, Dobbins put Estime on notice. Like that's your words and Brandon's, whom and I'm kind of leaning that way now a little bit when you kind of look at Dobbins' numbers and everything that he was able to produce. But like, because of what you guys said, it kind of maybe put it back on you a little bit. Still, is Estime a surprise candidate?
I think so, because he was only a rookie last year. I mean, to be cut in your second year, there is expectations for you coming into this year before obviously they drafted Harvey and signed Dobbins, and then Payne has spoken some good words about Estime as well. So I mean, I think that'd be a surprise cut candidate, at least in my opinion. I mean, I think you would think like a Jaleel McLaughlin will be higher in that pecking order than an Estime, but just because of what we know and what we just hear, and especially with the J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey pairing, I don't know. That may be
maybe the question is, who would be the biggest surprise cut of the running back room? Would it be Jaleel or would it be Estime?
I'd be more surprised if it's Estime than Jaleel McLaughlin. Even though I said that J.K. Dobbins pushes Estime out the door, I'd still be surprised.
So I have one that may not be on the radar. As far as a surprise cut. Do I think he's cut? No, because we talked about him as far as a lock of the wide receiver room, right?
Uh-oh.
Um,
Getting into my position group now. Who we cutting?
I would say that Trent Sherfield would be a surprise cut candidate.
I think so too.
Do I think he's going to be cut? Absolutely not. But like, just kind of like when you kind of peel it down to the layers, and you know how much special teams is also a very, like also it's a easy position sometimes, like to also kind of like find a guy and and get. But also I think the thing is, like, when you have guys like Darren Rizzi and Sean Payton and these guys who love their special teams gurus that are on that unit, it's easy to know why Trent Sherfield is probably going to be on this team, and just solely as a gunner, solely as a player that's going to be making a dominant impact on on this team. But I would say that if Trent Sherfield was cut, that would be one. That would be a surprise candidate. And he's not it's not a household name, but it would be one where it's like, oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah, just because of what we signed them, I think everybody knew that not only was it a depth wide receiver position, but it's more specifically for a special teams role, especially after losing Tremont Smith. But I would pose you this question as well. If you only had to keep one, who are you keeping between Estime, McLaughlin, Beatty, and Watson?
If I only had to keep one?
Yep. That's because I'm for this theoretical scenario, I am going to say that the Broncos carry 4 running back / fullback. So it would be Dobbins, Harvey, a third string running back, and then Burton.
You're saying
the last running back?
So you're saying technically 3 running backs and then Burton.
Yes. Who would be your third running back between Estime, McLaughlin, Beatty, and Watson? Or
probably right now, I would say Jaleel. But I think that my prediction as of now is I actually think they carry 4.
I can see him carrying 4. I just want to see who would be the.
But I think the 4th person is special teams value. To where.
Okay, interesting. So Estime still doesn't count into that, or
you use him as a lead blocker. You use him as, or you use Jaleel on kickoffs. You use Blake Watson on kickoffs. I mean, like.
Does Jaleel have any special teams experience?
I don't think he does. Like, that's just the other part of it too. Is,
that's interesting.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just and then you kind of like go to you go to the defensive side of the ball, right? And defenses, they're strong. So we just said that. You go to the defense. We said Alex Singleton, PJ Locke. Not exactly a surprise cut candidate. Contract would suggest easy to move off of. Also, easy to define it as safety 3, right? Like, it's easy to define him as this is a really good safety 3. And remind everybody, and we'll have this conversation once we dive a little bit deeper into the positions before we get into training camp. But like, the reason why PJ Locke was gifted that starting job and earned that deal, if you will, to be a second starter was because of the play that he did have for when he was safety 3. Like, he had earned that. When Kareem Jackson went down, he rose to the occasion with Justin and became the starter and kind of like earning that starting job. But once he earned that starting job, he kind of proved a little bit that he's safety 3. But unfortunately, Jordan, when you are safety 3, you're kind of putting yourself into that area of, you're a cut candidate. But he's not a surprise. He is to me, he's not a surprise cut candidate necessarily. But I'm looking on the back end, right? I'm looking on the back end, or I'm looking on the defensive line, and I'm like, who else would be a surprise candidate there on that defense?
I mean, does Jordan Jackson even qualify as a surprise cut candidate?
No.
I don't think so.
I mean, Damari Mathis, no. Frankly, he gave up his 27 for J.K. Dobbins. So maybe he's seen, and he started to make a rap album. So maybe he's starting to kind of see a little bit of the writing on the wall. But
yeah, I mean, yeah, in terms of like surprise, I don't think those are like surprise candidates. I mean, I don't know. Like it's just very hard this year. There's really not like those type of guys that we've had in the years past.
Obviously, Awamo Razarike, they cut him. Not a surprise candidate.
That's not a surprise.
Yeah. I guess the only way to say it is like if they cut a player that they recently drafted, that would be one, right?
That's why I said estimate.
Or JL Skinner.
If they cut him, I'd be heartbroken. I think he has a very bright future as a safety. I know he's a special teams guy now, but once he gets his opportunity at safety, I think he's going to be really good.
I don't know if you've been here when I've been kind of on the somewhat of the JL Skinner hive, but it's like what I would like to see them do, and this goes to the linebacker conversation, is kind of convert him a little bit to the Jamal Adams role.
That'd be very nice.
But yeah, because safety, there's a lot of people in that room. Frankly, Devon Key, he's an okay safety.
He's a good depth safety.
But
Keydron
Smith proved himself in preseason to earn a spot.
Yeah.
DTY. DTY.
I mean, I know he's not a household name, but he's always lingering during training camp and preseason, and he's always one of those where you're making your final 53-man prediction. You're like, is he going to be the last safety named because of special team reasons, or is he going to go on the practice squad? But yeah,
but again, like it's we're having these conversations now to at least brace ourselves for possibly what's to come. But there's not a whole lot. There really is not a whole lot of surprise cut candidates on this team. When really it's all said and done, but. So do you have anything else that is like in your gut that you've been dying to talk about, aside from the fact of sending in a random picture of Pat Surtain getting burned by Jerry Jeudy?
I don't know what you're talking about. I do not. I plead the fifth on that. But again, I think just my biggest, I don't want to say concerns, but the biggest thing I want solved very early, and what I want updated on a very regular basis is how's the wide receiver room doing?
You're in wide receivers, I swear.
I just need to know. I can't sleep well at night not knowing that we can have somebody else but Courtland Sutton producing.
What he's trying to say, ladies and gents, is that he would trade right now to have Jerry Jeudy be a Denver Bronco right again. That's what he's trying to say without saying it.
I miss him so much.
Did you see that tear?
I don't know why George Payton. I mean, again, it's unrealistic that they even trade him, but I don't understand why he doesn't make an aggressive offer for Scary Terry.
For Scary Terry, I mean, he did say with Sean that they are in every single deal, or at least they try to be in. They try to be in every single deal.
I mean,
whether that's just,
Yeah, I mean, I can see them just checking prices on everybody, but again, you want to make a real statement to the entire league. And yes, you are going to give up capital and stuff like that, and I get it, but you want to make a real statement after the free agency you just had, the signings and the draft that they are very much in love with. I mean,
you know what doesn't make any sense to me? You know, we're having this conversation about the wide receiver room. You know what doesn't make any sense to me? When look, and I love Bronco reporters, and we'll see if we could be able to have one on as we're gearing up for training camp and everything was, you know, and what to expect and everything. But given now the video that we had seen with Stephon Diggs I should just say Diggs' history, why are reporters, or in this sense, like gearing up with this idea that the Broncos actually had more interest in Stephon Diggs than Cooper Kupp? Look, I'm not the smartest necessarily Broncos, you know, person in the, you know, in tool shed, if you will, at times, but I know a Sean Payton type of wide receiver when I see one, and Cooper Kupp was a Sean Payton type of type wide receiver. So I'm trying really hard to process the just the overall idea and this notion that the Broncos actually weren't as aggressive for Cooper Kupp, whereas they at least were a tad more aggressive for a guy like Stephon Diggs. Now, the only thing that like is crossing my mind on that as we're, you know, talking about that wide receiver room is like, was it just because Diggs is off the field issues? That's why you kept like checking in on him? I don't know, but like it feels weird to me. You know, that the one wide receiver that you frankly could have used on this team stylistically and everything, Cooper Kupp, and apparently they showed the least amount of interest in.
Yeah, I agree with you here. Cooper Kupp made like the most sense for Denver, and I'm still upset that we didn't make a harder push. And again, let me rephrase that. I don't know how hard of a push Denver really made behind the scenes, but
right.
I thought that was very, very
weird.
Yeah, just the whole how I got reported and stuff like that. Just the dots to connect there weren't very
it was just
friendly.
They weren't friendly for sure, but because he didn't sign here. But it was just like, I don't know, it just felt like weird, like, you know, like he's a veteran. Like he was literally, you put him in the room, he's the wide receiver 2 automatically, or he lifts the entire ceiling / room floor of the entire wide receiver room, and he fits exactly what we would be, you know, wanting. I don't know. But nonetheless, as Paul says, we have Pat Bryant, and Pat Bryant is going to be surprising a lot of people, including this person over here on the, over here on the right-hand side over here. You're going to see a tear the moment, Pat Bryant, catches his first touchdown pass.
It'll be tears of joy. I don't know, tears of sadness. I think it'll be tears of joy knowing that maybe we have someone, but just very, very skeptical of it.
Skeptical. Anyway, I think that was pretty much everything that we had. I mean, again, we are going to be doing positions breakdown. I think that we're about a month away. So maybe what we'll do is starting next week, we'll start gearing up for the position battles, heading into training camp. So, once you make the first call, what position group do you want to go and take a little bit of a deep dive in as we kind of preview everything in the training camp? Make your call.
I mean, Bo Nix versus Sam Ehlinger. All right, I'm just kidding.
Apparently, they visited Beaver Creek, by the way, for the first time.
Did see that?
Yeah, was it Stidham too?
I didn't see Stidham there. I know Ehlinger was there with Nix for sure. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I know Stidham and Nix are tight, especially the two wives there.
Mm-hmm.
But, in terms of position,
don't say wide receiver. I will say that.
I'm trying to refrain from saying wide receiver. That's the problem. I would say inside linebacker, just because we need to get more in depth with the Drew Sanders conversation and how he lines up with a healthy Greenlaw, a healthy Singleton, and if he is what Sanders is supposed to be.
You heard it here. So we'll do some inside linebacker talk, and maybe talk about that linebacker position in general, and maybe kind of go to edge a little bit too.
We can do that.
Consider the fact that like outside linebacker is somewhat qualified as an edge, depending on who you talk to. So yeah, we'll do inside linebacker talk next week as we gear ourselves up for 2025 training camp, where, by the way, I have no idea how they're going to do that this year, considering like you got the new facility that's going to be gearing up for 2026. So I'm assuming that if they do fans, it will be very limited amount, and it will be ticketed. And obviously the question is, I have no idea where the fans will be sitting, because where they are making the seating available, or they're upgrading, if you will, is right around where the fans would be seated on that hill, on that berm, if you will. So I have no idea where fans are going to be, seeing.
Maybe I make it out to training camp.
Maybe? Question mark?
Maybe.
And then maybe we hit the links and I whoop your butt in 18 holes.
I have not swung a club in, I would like to say, 6 months.
That's good. It means you should get out now and, train like Rocky Balboa, only for golf.
That means if I were to play right now, my first hole would probably be really good and I'd be very excited, and then I shoot like shit the rest of the time.
That's the thing with golf, right? You have a really bad, you have a really good hole, and then you have a really bad hole following that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that is kind of like,
Might not even hit the ball off the tee.
Yeah. So, it'll be a lot of fun. We'll see if you can fly. I know Sayer, friend of the program.
Yes, we need a trio to link up.
I know Sayer said he's going to at least try and see if he can make it down here. Well, gents, that has been another episode of the Manely Broncos podcast. Like I said, we will be doing a inside linebacker breakdown, for the, for training camp, the 2025 training camp position outlook. We'll begin with that position. Until then, make sure you hit that subscribe button for the MHRT Network page. We are pushing ever so harshly. No, that sounds mean. We are continuing to push for 2,000 subscribers over there on MHRT Network's YouTube page. It sounds like we've been growing pretty good, but we need to get there to 2,000 by the end of the year. But in order to do that, you also have to follow, obviously, myself and Jordan. We'll continue to, pump out the best possible Broncos content for you here on the Manely Broncos podcast. Follow the Manely Broncos podcast over on X at Manely Broncos. You can also follow him on Instagram, where we'll share clips periodically. Yeah. I'm still waiting on Jordan to follow the Manely Broncos account on Instagram, but
I did not know I did not follow.
But I feel very what can I say? Upset that Jordan has yet to follow the Manely Broncos Twitter account.
Do I not? Oh my god, I don't. Oh my
god. Anyway,
I feel awful.
On Instagram, we even had Jordan in the bio, and he didn't even follow.
You too. Wow, I feel like an awful teammate right now.
Yeah. But yeah, so make sure you follow the Manely Broncos Instagram account. You can follow the Manely Broncos X Twitter account at Cameron Parker PO on X, at Jordan T. Lopez over there on X as well. It's been a great show, and as always, in this time of season and in the off season or any season, it's always good to remember.
Let's go Broncos! God bless Bo Nix!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.